My friends, how about we make another diorama? Huh? I'm gonna call this one The Calm Before the Storm, as I want to depict a scene from Belgium 1940 just before the German invasion began. We've got everything ready for it. Figures, a tank, a tree, a brick wall. I spent the past few weeks creating those, and I'll leave you links in the description below so you can watch these videos in case you haven't. But it didn't used to be like this. The diorama started as a very rudimentary 3-dimensional sketch because I don't feel like doing anything unless I'm sort of happy with the layout. Basically, I started with the basic dimensions of the scene. I wanted to have a slightly sloping road for the tank, so I created it like this. Then I could add the sides, a mellow downhill in the front and a raised portion in the background. Once everything was in place, I could establish the overall height of the scene so it would be more aesthetically pleasing. I didn't film the process because it involves a lot of thinking and messing around and very little of doing actual things. But basically I've cut every piece of foam on my thermo cutter, which allowed me to build up the groundwork like a set of Legos. Any protruding part was easily cleaned off using the hot wire. I kinda find this approach much easier than carving the basic groundwork from a single piece of foam. It simply gives you tons of creative freedom. Anyway, time to make the sides nice and fancy. I like working with planks of balsa wood because it's soft and easy to cut with a hobby blade. However, because it's soft, it will become warped once it comes into contact with PVA glue. To prevent this sort of damage and to ensure it'll sit nice and flush, I find it easiest and cheapest to hold it in place using pins. A small carpenter vise would do a better job, but I simply haven't gotten to that level yet. Now the diorama looks like your average Iron Maiden fan, and I'll leave it like this for 2 or 3 hours.
3 hours later.
Now it's all rock solid, so I can get rid of the pins. But obviously, they'll leave some deep scars. Of course we'll get rid of them, but first I'm gonna drop these unnecessary pieces which are easy to snap and cause some serious harm, and also all protruding pieces on the sides. Balsa has quite a heavy wood grain texture, which is fine, but I like more smooth, slick look, so while I was filling the holes, I figured why not spread the wood putty across the entire surface. Using a spatula will make the surface more even and we won't have to sand it too much. In the meantime, let's create some more intricate terrain volumes. I'm using a regular air drying clay which you can find in any arts and crafts store. It's good enough for this task. It usually cracks a little when it dries, but if you apply it in thin layers it shouldn't be anything catastrophic. I'm especially making sure to cover the surface where figures will stand, as they need to stand flush with the groundwork, and of course I used it to model the ruts on the dirt road. I didn't cover the entire road section as I need a perfectly straight surface for the tank which doesn't have movable suspension. I also added extra PVA glue for good measure so that the clay won't fall off once it's dry. And now we can sand the sides. This is just an artistic representation, I had to go outside because there's a lot of dust, but you get the idea. I finished them off with the final cut, which ensures the sides will fit perfectly flush with the groundwork and there won't be any visible edges once everything is done. Now we're ready for the more creative part of the process, aka groundwork, textures and vegetation. The fun stuff everyone enjoys. So, as I mentioned, I made sure the figures won't levitate above the ground, because after all they're French tankers, not Himalayan monks. And while I was waiting for things to dry, I made this little thingy over here. Yeah, it's just a simple milestone marker that I carved from styrofoam and painted in a concrete color using Vallejo acrylics. Then I stippled it with the same wood putty. I actually did it as I was filling the balsa planks, and this will act both as texture and as white paint. Then I added a yellow top, cap of sorts, and then I didn't film the rest, so here's a finished piece. Yeah, I know it's nothing spectacular, so there wasn't too much to show in the first place, but now I feel like a true galaxy brain because it allowed me to set the scene somewhere around Liège, which is close to the German border. Haha. Anyway, back to the work on the ground. We have lots of nice acrylic texture pastes on the market, but I kinda enjoy making my own. First, there's the satisfaction of doing it yourself, but there's another benefit which I'll talk about in a timely fashion. So, it's just a mixture of PVA, dirt from my garden, fine sand and some tap water. Mix it together like some chocolate pesto and it's ready to smear. I like to work in smaller sections and depending on the size of the scene, divide it into, let's say, 3 imaginary pieces or so. The paste dries really quick and that's something I always want to avoid for one and only reason. While it's still wet, we can add more texture by sprinkling the same ingredients, but in their dry form over the wet paste. Not only will it give us a more interesting surface, but it's also gonna soak up some of the moisture, making the mud cake dry faster and also prevent it from cracking. Well, okay, to be fair, I read about the cracking part in a book. I haven't experienced it myself, but, better be safe than sorry, am I right? Of course I am, when was I wrong? Oh yeah, that one time when I decided to paint the S35 Samua for this diorama. Anywho, most of the groundwork is fun and games, but a dirt road is more serious and it needs signs of traffic. And here's where the homemade paste comes in real handy. It dries uniformly, so it's not gonna be wet inside unlike acrylic pastes. We can check this by disrupting it with a paintbrush, which also creates simple but effective tire tracks. If it's a-okay, we can do another task and test at the same time and press in the tank tracks, which logically should be there if the ground is a little soft. If the ground doesn't get torn out, we can do the final and most important thing and press the tank firmly into the ground. Just like their crews, tanks are not very spiritual and they don't levitate, so it's really, obviously really important. It also makes the tank look heavy, which is always a nice thing. And I kinda did the same with the fence, these usually don't float either. The final texturing stage is about randomly sprinkling some larger stones, these are roughly 2 mm. Another nice addition is trampled and dried up grass, which can be made from dried up real grass. Okay, it's from a dried up sea ball, which is a clump of dry seagrass. And it's all fixed with a uniform coat of diluted PVA glue. This will not only hold this layer of scattering in place, but also seal the previous coats of dirt and fine sand. We can achieve a lot of visual detail in some places, such as the middle of the road. These are really gonna pop once they're painted. Alright, now it looks like the diorama developed some kind of mold, but once the PVA dries, it's nice and tidy and rock hard. Not a single stone is going anywhere anymore. And now we can bring out the static grass applicator, a neat, cheap tool from eBay which makes life so much easier for any diorama modeler. I've only made a handful of dioramas, but I already have some useful observations. It's best to apply the PVA glue undiluted, pretty much straight from the bottle. It needs to form these thick blobs on the surface. The static grass will adhere better, and it'll form nice rounded tufts. Not to mention other benefits. Once it's dry, the grass will become super stiff, which is very useful during the painting stage. Just like with the ground, I like to work in sections, adding it in random, uneven patterns. It seems more natural to me than applying a huge, uniform English lawn. At the end of the day, it all comes down to stippling PVA and then sprinkling, and again, sprinkling. Oh yeah, and of course tapping against the base so the excess will fall off. It looks pretty neat already, but there's always more. Longer pieces of static grass are easier to apply with tweezers because they're simply too long and they won't fall through the applicator mesh. And we can go even longer. A natural paintbrush is a great source of grass. We can cut any length we desire and glue it in place just like any other dedicated grass product. And then there's of course photo-etched vegetation. This will add a nice detail and more importantly, bling. More bling. So much bling. Alright, here we have it. But it doesn't look like the thumbnail, right? No, of course not. Well, feast your eyes on this hashtag realistic scenery while you can, because I'm about to do the thing everyone freaks out about every time I do it. It is prime time, my friends. I always prime my models, and I really like priming terrains as well, especially with this black primer, which will give the base more volume once it's all painted, especially all the grass and other vegetation. Just look at it, all nicely unified and slick, as all things in the world should be. Moving on is my favorite part of the entire painting process. There's something extremely satisfying and calming about airbrushing static grass. Maybe it's the fumes. Even though it comes pre-colored, I find it kinda all over the place when it's left unpainted. The black primer plays a huge role in this, as it creates a deep shadow inside of each tuft, making them look more voluminous. Another benefit is how we can play around with any color we want and achieve a lot of tonal variation if that's our goal. Yeah, of course, you can achieve variation by using different colors of static grass, but you'll end up with tufts or patches of different colors. But with airbrushing, you can achieve variety on each single tuft. For example, long grass can be green near the ground and dry at the top, which is often the case in nature. The way I like to approach it is by starting with darker colors that cover most of the surface, and then make them lighter and lighter, applying them in smaller and smaller amounts towards the top. It creates a nice color gradient, and the more yellow you add into the green, the richer the grass is gonna look. I mean, just look at it. How much texture, richness, and just life it brings to the scene, especially in the middle of the road. That's probably my favorite part. As for the groundwork itself, here I needed to match the color I used on the tank, which was an acrylic texture paste. Here, however, I didn't mess around with any gradients, post shading, or post anything. It's just a simple, monotonous coat of paint, as I'm gonna create all of the interesting stuff with enamel colors. It's just to establish the basic tone, which is gonna match the one on the tank. And of course, clean up all the overspray from the grass. Okay, another step is done, and now it suddenly looks like some dry country road somewhere in Italy, which doesn't sound so bad either, right? But okay, before I show you how I painted everything, let's fix a few things in place. Mainly the tree. I mentioned at the end of its video that I'm gonna sculpt a root system for it, once it's glued to the ground. Yeah, now's the time, and I used the same method like on the trunk or branches, which I described in more detail in the tree video, which is in the description below, and also it should be somewhere on your screen. I was a bit worried if I'll be able to match the tone, but, if you use the same colors, there's no reason why it shouldn't look the same. Once that was out of the way, I could also glue the wall in place, all done with PVA glue because super glue will melt the styrofoam. And now for the enamel paints. These are the same colors I used to weather the tank, and it's gonna ensure the tones will match. The first stage is very simple and fast. It's only about using the two primary colors in random patterns and blending them with enamel thinner. This is the part where we mostly match the tones of the ground with those on the tank. However, some variation can be achieved here. For example, the meadow part contains both colors in roughly equal amounts. The bank next to the road, however, water usually flows down these slopes, and as a result, they dry rather quickly. So I primarily used the dry earth color. A dark wash can be used around small surface details such as the trampled grass or loose rocks. I'm applying it while the previous layers are still wet. It's the so-called wet blending method. And with this approach, paints will melt into each other and create subtle effects without too much effort. The second stage is more specific, and it mostly concerns the road, which needs to match the tank's tracks and lower hull. Adding a dark earth color over the track marks is one thing, but it can be also used to add contrast and volume to other features, such as those older, eroded tire tracks we made with a paintbrush. Then I could hit it with the final effect, the darkest color, which represents somewhat fresh mud. It doesn't necessarily have to be a muddy ground, it also acts as a pin wash which defines specific shapes in the ground. Mainly those which we couldn't even see when the groundwork wasn't painted. It can be also added to a few places besides the road, such as these recessed parts of the meadow. It'll make them darker while the raised sections will be lighter. It's a sort of post-shading with earth colors, right? Okay, the enamel stage is over and we can proceed to the detailing phase. I'll start by painting small details, and for these I have already developed my own favorite color palette, which won't stand out too much. This process feels to me like diorama chipping. It's similar to painting steel chips on tanks because it's kinda slow and requires a bit of patience. However, if you break it into small sections, the results will be more immediate and it's gonna push you forward. That's how I like to do it. For example, I painted the stones on the road in 4 individual segments. Now it's suddenly full of different colors and small visual details which were all there, but they were kinda hard to spot because everything was so uniform. This makes the groundwork pretty much done, and we can conclude the job with some finishing touches, such as gluing the road marker in place and blending it with the background, painting the photo-etched vegetation, supergluing figures in place, and most importantly, paper plants. Something I haven't used in a long time, but I already collected a few packs of different stuff. I decided to color them because the original green paper is kinda meh, but a few vivid greens, yellows and browns will give them more life. After cutting them out carefully, well, I was trying to be careful, I fixed them in place with PVA glue. Some of them are pretty easy to use, just paint, cut out, bend them a little and glue them in place. Others, such as the ivy, are quite delicate and can be a real pain to work with, but I think the result is gonna be totally worth the effort. With these in place, I felt like adding anything else would be detrimental and I might end up cluttering the scene, right? So I glued the tank in place, which is always like a final dot after every diorama. The only thing left to do was painting the sides with a black color, which will give the whole scene a clean, unassuming look. They simply won't draw too much attention and any potential viewer can focus fully on the diorama itself. So here we are, my friends, with another finished diorama. This one was a bit of a roller coaster because I wasn't too passionate about the tank, but at the same time I wanted to stay focused and give it my best. I also did everything you see with a broken leg, and the injury made things more complicated because of the discomfort. It was preoccupying my mind all the time, and it was just... yeah, you can probably imagine. I mean, dealing with a serious injury is never fun. As I'm recording this, it's 4th of September, and I have 3 more weeks until my next visit to the doctor. I don't wear a cast anymore, but my bones are still not okay, so I can't walk and need to be on a constant lookout for anything uncool with my bones, right? So that's a small update on me personally, and I just wanted to say thank you everyone for wishing me well under each video. I appreciate it a lot and I absolutely love you for that. So I hope you liked the finished scene, even though most of you didn't really enjoy the tank itself, and honestly I can totally understand why. But I mean, you know, thanks for being patient with me. And I also want to say thank you to my gorgeous patrons who make this weekly show possible. So if you like this type of stuff, I'm posting more on my Patreon page. There are almost daily updates from me, you know, what I'm working on, how's each project progressing, why am I doing stuff the way I do. There are 1 week early ad-free videos, comments, DMs, so we can, you know, talk about stuff. And also these super nice studio photos which you can download in full bazillion K resolution. I also have a few 3D models which you can print, you know, mostly small accessories and details, and some real-life references and inspirations for dioramas. Alright, just 2 more things before I go. I mentioned doing a diorama for the Syrian T55 after this one, right? Well, in the meantime, I noticed a nice set of figures which is not released yet, but they'd be totally perfect for it. So I'm probably gonna wait until they're released, and if I don't lose all interest in the project by then, I'll go back and make that diorama. And the second thing, there's been quite a lot of stuff lately, so before I come back with a new project, I'll maybe skip 1 week so I'll have more room and time to, well, to exist, basically. Yeah, I hope that's gonna be okay. Is that gonna be okay? I'm not saying it's totally gonna happen, but just in case, right? And just in any case, so we can look forward to the next one, it's gonna be a Yacht Panther with photo edge, Timmerit, and every cool thing imaginable. So until then, stay safe, stay awesome, keep building models, don't just collect them, and I'll see you again in the next one. Cheers!